Welcome to the basically penultimate session, since Sato-san gets to say a few words at the end. For AsiaBSDCon, we're going to do a small number of works in progress presentations. First, Brian's going to talk about light BSD and retro BSD. I'm going to give him this microphone. And that's your buttony thing if you want, or you can just use the spacebar. There's a forward and a back. Try one and see which one works. There you go. How does this computer thing work?
This is a technical conference, right?
Yeah.
Alright, hi everybody. So I'm going to talk just real brief about two tiny BSD projects called Light BSD and Retro BSD. They're fully fledged BSDs for tiny little PIC32 microcontrollers. It's at the moment a very small, I think, 4 or 5 of us who actively work on this project at the moment. It was founded by a former ex-Soviet, now in California, hacker named Sergey. So the difference between the two, Retro runs 2.11 BSD plus microcontroller editions, and Light BSD, we, instead of taking free or net or open, we went all the way back to 4.4 BSD Light 2, and we're slowly working it up to being a modern, fully fledged BSD. You don't really get all that much RAM. So Retro BSD you get 128K of RAM, and Light BSD you get 512K of RAM. And it's K, it's not M. So it's amazing how much you can do in a small space. This is what the hardware looks like if you've ever seen the PIC32 stuff. Tiny little boards. They're no bigger than the Arduinos. So what do you get with these Retro BSD? Not only do you get 2.11 BSD, you get some fancy editors called VI, another fancy one, called Emacs. Well, kind of Emacs, it's the micro Emacs. The cool thing about Retro BSD is that even with the small amount of RAM you get, you still get a C compiler, an assembler, and a linker. And you can, in fact, recompile the system on itself, which I think is really neat for something that tiny. You don't really get Ethernet. Ethernet's kind of fake through the Arduino shield. It's a userland library, so you got to write in like Ethernet init if you want to make your programs use the internet. You have BinSH, if Steven's still here, it's actually his. It's his BinSH, and CSH. GPIO control, we use Kermit for serial transfer on both Retro and Light BSD, because it's actually BSD licensed, so we're able to drop it in the base system and not to worry about the GPL-ness of Z-modem. Light BSD, you also get some exciting editors named VI. You actually get full-fledged MG from OpenBSD Current. So it's amazing what will actually work on these tiny little systems. We're using PCC as our C compiler for Light BSD. PCC is actually officially now supported upstream, thanks to Anders, who I've been in contact with. We've written a custom assembler because it's only MIPS, so we only need to support one architecture. And we're trying to use the ELF toolchain from, I guess no longer from the FreeBSD project, but as our linker. The compiler and the assembler work, the linker still needs work. So if anyone here is or knows of the ELF toolchain people, I want to meet you. We use Lua as a scripting language. We do not use Lua in the kernel. You get yeah, exactly, why not? You get the latest OpenSSL. You actually get real Ethernet on Light BSD. Depending on your hardware, it'll either be Wi-Fi or regular Ethernet. Internet works, it all works. BinSH is OpenBSD's corn shell from about 10 years ago, and there's weird historical reasons why that is. You also get the latest CSH from OpenBSD, and we kept the BinSH from 4.4, but we just call it Ash now. And we've been slowly going back and putting back all the stuff that wasn't on the 4.4 tape, so like DC and VC aren't on the 4.4 Light 2 tape. We pulled those from FreeBSD. The vast majority of our user bin is now from OpenBSD Current, with a couple things from NetBSD. We have a ports tree that I've kind of started based on my experience being on the OpenBSD team as a porter there. We have 80 ports as of this morning. I committed the 80th one. Like everything else, ports make packages. You use our O-package utility to install packages. And we have some pretty interesting things, like for Alan, if he's here, he can run Nano. So he's happy with that. Gmake works. Web servers work. Browsers work. File works. Less works. An old version of Screen works. Tmux does not work, I've tried. So anyone who wants to help out with Tmux. So if you want to get involved, I think it's really cool. You should think it's really cool. You should get involved in this thing. Here's some websites. You can talk to me about it. Yeah, that's all I got. So this is the new BSD family that's taking the world by storm, one small microcontroller at a time.
Any questions?
Ask me questions. I have nothing else to do for the rest of the night. Besides, yeah. He asked if LLVM was compiled.
I have a question. Is since you need specific microcontroller boards, and there's a little bit on retro BSD site.
The websites are wikis and it has all the hardware and how to set up it. And if you don't want to buy hardware, we have a QEM board that emulates all the hardware boards that it runs on.
My question. All I have to do is see beehive.
Thank you very much. So, three quick things. One, if you want to hack on a Teensy board with BSD or a Galileo 2 with any BSD, please approach me. This is yours, and I even have the obscure serial cable needed for it. Thank you. So, moving on to Beehive, the work in progress. Thank you everyone who attended and spoke at BeehiveCon Friday. That was the third BeehiveCon, and it's good to be in a room with most of the subject matter experts out there, short of Neil and Peter, who couldn't make it to this conference. And speaking of people who couldn't make this conference, it is with great sadness to have lost Paul Schinkelfeld after last year's conference here in Asia, and he was promoting Beehive around Europe, and I miss him terribly. And more closer to home with Beehive was Benjamin Peralt, not Alan, who's still in the audience. Right there.
Walk away.
Yeah. Benjamin was invaluable in helping out test Beehive at scale and on Windows, and he was going to be here at this conference giving an enterprise Beehive usage talk. And if you've seen any of the Beehive folks act a bit quirky this last 2 months, it is our collective, painful, profound response to his passing. It was unexpected, absolutely unexpected, and he was brilliant, giving, anti-chauvinistic, and we will feel that loss forever, unfortunately. And looking at the brief Beehive history, going from the Meet BSD 2010 unconference where we concluded we need a hypervisor. The licensing on the other alternatives is a no-go. Jails are great, but they do not solve all the problems. And I have, as my gift to this event and moving forward, compiled the milestones of Beehive on the FreeBSD wiki at wiki.freebsd.org/beehive. And it goes from, say, the head import up through some usability issues, up through 32-bit guest support, thank you, John Baldwin, up through its arrival on X-Hive parenthetically, AMD support, which was pretty important, UEFI in head, and UEFI is getting quite interesting. Thank you, GNN, for committing the NatVert.io patch. Finally, a man page for Beehive Control. And the UEFI work hitting stable, and fortunately with the pressure, the combined pressure of 11 coming, and all these little tiny things that are works in progress coming together, the 11 release should be pretty amazing. And finally announced Friday was the UEFI GOP graphics output protocol support, which means you can now boot Windows and Friends with next finish for installation. So stay tuned for more on that. I haven't had a few minutes because I've only had the code for about 72 hours to work with. There will be more on that, and that just opens up a great many doors for everyone using anything on Beehive and the like. Now you'll notice that 2015 was pretty quiet from a milestone perspective. There was massive refinement in every little way and performance improvements, and that in a way represents its maturity as a new technology, and I'm very grateful for everyone who helped make that happen. You know who you are. Help wanted, So, starting with your feature here, let me know. There's a pretty tight community of Beehive folks, and they generally know who's working on what, but often they're also the very last people on Earth to learn about something neat being done with Beehive. So don't assume anything. There have been various GSOC projects, and standing out on this list are things like USB pass-through, very useful in conjunction with Windows when you have a bookkeeping software. You make your money on Unix, but you count it on Windows, and your bookkeeping software has a USB dongle, and you need to just stick it in to do what you do. That should not be hard. Hopefully we'll be in 11. We have various disk and network support, emulation support coming in, which hopefully will make 11, which allows us to run FreeBSD4 if you want, and go back in time. And fortunately, various folks here are actually talking about nifty possibilities on CPI goodies, nested virtualization, which I know that the OpenBSD Beehive VMM folks have worked on to some degree, and way hypothetically suspend and resume and live migration, which may be related, may not be related. And I'd like to add to this, and I've added to the wiki, all of you Clang lovers, please, now that we have this wonderful virtualization stack, we suddenly have things like Intel Tiana Core and U-Boot on ARM, and Grub, which I would prefer never use, but it's a very useful piece of software. If you're bored one evening and weekend, month, year, please try to build those with Clang LLVM. It's all foreign software, and we're trying to get as many things in base as possible so that, you know, we can just live our own little BSD life. So, thank you so much. Approach me with questions, and again, hey, hardware, all those NetBSD folks, let me know. Thank you.
I always have a question, so if no one asks one, I'll ask one. But
yes, that's true.
Are there any questions from the audience?
Okay, so Intel, well, you won't even touch it. So Intel is trying to get into the small devices market, which they pretended didn't exist for a very, very long time. So this is like an Arduino bolted onto their own Atom-like processor. Take a look. And
it won't burn you.
It won't burn you.
It might burn, yeah.
There will be some Netgate hardware given away a little later, these smaller Intel boards, I believe they're Intel architecture. Intel's trying to explore that space very late to the game, so hey, anything we can do to help them out. Teensy is a PIC microcontroller. If you can get RetroBSD to work on there, go for it, man. If anyone's interested, let me know. Courtesy of Ward Cunningham, inventor of the week. Other questions?
So other questions about Beehive? So I have a question
Yes,
about how closely are the Beehive folks tracking the X5 work?
So when I touched on the fact that the core developers are often the last people on the planet to hear about something neat, it just came out of the blue. Suddenly, there it was. So one interesting thing here that I hope made it is on the wiki is, oh, it's right there, the VirtFS support. Very exciting to them. What that means is that you're, in the short term, right now with some experimental code, you can have a Linux VM access the host file system. You pass in a directory or a data set and say, hey, you can see this. In the longer term, there is a desire and need and some work being done on a FreeBSD client for that so that you can have a FreeBSD virtual machine access a host data set. And where things get very, very exciting is diskless booting from a virtual machine such that your boot environments, thank you Alan for your work on that. Please look up the work that Alan's done on boot environments. I will probably publish an article on this because suddenly we've just killed dual booting. We can have your pool, /root, /current, head, FreeNAS, all these different FreeBSD bases OS and hopefully a Lumos, and just aim at one at boot time or aim Beehive at it, which gets very cool. So you can test your upgrades, you can run current and head simultaneously, effortlessly, just with zero, fundamental distinctions. Anyway.
Okay, great. Yes.
Other questions?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.